few weeks. Now, whether at the end of the day you then edit it down into the language that the institution understands, or challenge the institution by using other languages and concepts, that's a political choice that has to be made. And ideally, you should try and do both, possibly in an executive summary that is couched in that sort of language, and allow certain sections to be really bottom-up, constructed from what I mean, capture the Twitter stream and edit that's happened in the last 2 days. That should be the basis of this report.
We are kind.
About the things that are missing from this draft or whatever was presented to us. There's one thing that I'm missing, but I understand why it's missing. I'm talking here. The thing that I'm missing is that we had a workshop even, or a breakout session on resilience, that people were talking about collapse of society, European Union and stuff, etc. And I'm kind of missing that. I know the guys don't want to hear about that, we are anticipating that, but I think this is an important aspect that should be covered in this report.
So all session leaders, please get online and write mission reports so we can take that into.
So I want to there's some missing context here, right? So part of this is that the bureaucratic hack done to make Edgeryders happen from existing Council of Europe project funding mechanisms requires the final product to look fairly conventional. So the price we pay for having a very unconventional, very creative process that's still massively funded is that the final product has to look pretty much like all the other final products. But if it succeeds, 5 years from now, you can go gung ho.
I disagree. I'm sorry. I fully disagree with you. I think I used to value the process and the result. And I think the process shapes the result. And we are in a completely different process of thinking on a product. So I fully disagree on the idea that it should look like any other product. And this is why I think it is somehow risk-taking for us as well to involve you guys in such a discussion. But I think we are completely open-minded. So I fully disagree on the fact that at the very end you are paying a price. I think you are having an opportunity rather than paying a price. And yesterday we have explained clearly that we are, as institutions, we are ready to learn as well. And I think this was the attitude of the European Commission representative as well. So I think, it is true that we have to come to terms between your world and we institutions, but this is rather than an opportunity that, a constraint.
I mean, to be fair, right, I produced a book on a wiki with 100 authors, right? Full anarchy, no editorial oversight, everybody can see everybody else's stuff as it was created. It looks nothing like a coherent overview which could be digested by policymakers, because what you get is an enormous number of completely raw perspectives that are too different to integrate. In the places where we set missions which were shaped around the research needs of bits of Council of Europe, in the way that we decided we were going to have an academic analysis methodology, there are lots of places where we've stepped outside of the network paradigm to create something which the institution is capable of metabolizing. Right? This might seem like a big jump for the institution, but if you've given us 400,000 euros and absolutely no mandate to go with it, what we would have produced would be radically different. Right? The bridge is very important, but it's also very important to understand that it is a bridge. It looks radical to the institution, it's not radical. It's just radical to the institution.
Marty?
Yeah, so coming back to what Steph was saying, and this is kind of a point that I tried to raise yesterday, but time didn't work. yesterday the question of societal collapse was brushed off the table very unceremoniously without giving it. There was no debate or anything about that. And I think that, okay, there is a certain fairness to the fact that we want to maintain or at least institutions, the Commission and so on, want to maintain the impression that the European Union is not going to collapse. Fine. But the fact is that lots of countries in Europe are collapsing in one way or another, financially, economically, etc. And that is a massive strain on a lot of people, many of whom are in this room. So, we really need to have a very sensible conversation about not just what we're going to do about the collapse, but also what happens after the collapse. And in particular, I want to have the conversation about infrastructure management, because ultimately that's the stuff that keeps us alive. If we don't know how we're going to govern our infrastructure in a collapse scenario, then we could just as well give up living right now. Right? Thanks.
Can I just respond to that as an Edgeryder rather than a member of the research team? I think it's a valid point. It's something that we need to be thinking about it. But in terms of where to position that within the discussion that this handbook, whatever we call it, is going to have to present, for me, that forms the socio-economic backdrop. Yes, that's a fundamental part of the really crappy circumstances that we're all having to deal with at the moment. I think in terms of how Edgeriders respond to that threat, if Edgeriders want to go and write some mission reports about how they are dealing with that threat, brilliant, please go and do that under resilience now. And then we can work with that and incorporate that in the report. So I acknowledge what you're saying, but in terms of how we incorporate that from an Edgeryder's point of view, we need you to tell us how you're planning to deal with that.
So, I think the deal with the Council is to produce a kind of final product for policymakers. It can be very innovative, but it has to have the language of the policymaker. I understand, even though none of us, I think, is a policymaker, like very, very involved in policymaking. But I was wondering whether there is another demand from the community now, that the community is also asking a sort of final product that cannot be like as interactive as tweeting or other things on the platform, whether there is some demand for something which is final for the moment.
So, going back to the practicality, so what I demand from you is help me to help you. So, what I am expecting from you, and I am interested that this final handbook or whatever contains what it has to contain. So I would like for you, it is a wiki or a shared document, I don't care. So that we prepare some process, maybe in 2 or 3 iterations, where you are sharing what you have produced, and that you make the structure so that it is easy for each of us to go to the area where we have these validations to be done. And I would be happy to be able to comment to you. So I am giving you the comment. You are looking at it and deciding, yeah, this is something missing or not. You are editing it again in the language that will be understood. And after 2 or 3 iterations, I think we will be very satisfied for most of the issues. Yeah.
Elf has been there. Yes, Elf has been putting his hand up for ages.
I think to understand what kind of structure is the best for this handbook, or what kind of language and tone and so on, we must also try to discuss what are our expectations of what impact this book will have, and who will read it, and who will use it, and for what. So, I mean, for example, do we want very detailed recommendations for policy that can almost be copy-pasted into something, or do we want more of a capture a mood or atmosphere of Edgeriders, or and who do we want to read it? Only policymakers, or also the community that is useful for yeah? So, I mean, thoughts on that?
So myself, I somehow have an impression. Actually, this morning I remember a nice sentence someone said. Instead of talking about thinking inside or outside of the box, let's forget the box. And I have the impression that we get maybe even distracted with the report and policy. And I would really like to invite everyone to focus on ongoing collaboration and exchanging and creating their daily lives the way we want to live. And also for the people who at this moment may associate themselves with this, what some people consider, including myself, as bureaucratic structures, to also maybe forget a bit about their bureaucracy and the policies, and as a human beings, as people, join everyone in a partner relation and look for different ways we can organize ourselves. And even myself, this way of interaction here, I found a bit kind of, the energy seems a little low, and I've participated lately in many assembleas with people from 15M and Occupy, and I found a completely different energy and different way of collaborating. And maybe actually people continue to go out and join the assembleas and see how differently we can communicate. So again, not too much bureaucracy, policies and reports, and ongoing collaboration and doing things in daily lives. Look guys, let me clarify one thing here. Vinay is dead right. What we're doing here is we are structuring things in a certain way to get things done, okay, to make a difference, because there are so many places where a community like this can meet online and off. You know, we are not in the business of just adding yet another of these meeting places. You know, the collapsonomics crowds are running their own meeting places, etc. There's a lot of that stuff. What makes Edgeryders different is we actually get to talk to big government. You want to talk to big government, you have to do it in a certain format. And what you get in return is your chances of seeing some change come from that direction increase dramatically. So don't worry too much, because this is, think of it as an open source kind of approach. We have a lot of raw material. For now, we have the mission reports, we have the comments. Maybe we'll have a wiki tomorrow, whatever. And you can take a lot of different outputs, final outputs out of that. One of them is going to look, I think, pretty much like a policy report. It may be radical in content, but it will, for example, it will not say we should abolish the nation state, because that's not realistic. Nation states are not going to do that, so let's not waste our time and theirs proposing impossible stuff. We propose possible stuff. In that context, nothing is stopping you from taking the same evidence and taking it in a different direction, doing wikis, books, whatever. It's there for, it's in Creative Commons, it's open, anybody can use it, and then use is legitimate, right? So,
Alberto, can I make a suggestion? So maybe once we have a draft, we ask people for one-page commentaries, which we also make accessible, right? I mean, obviously there has to be a fully edited, laid out, designed professional work product for the council. But if there's also 20 or 30 individual Edgeryders commentaries on that are available online as well, that people who want to get the community response can print out and read alongside of it if they want to, that seems like it might cover both houses without having to do a substantial amount of additional work.
We have a mission called Where Edgeryders There, and that's meant for meta-level discussion. So Rebecca has been contributing to it, Valentina has been contributing to it. I'm hoping the other members of the research team will want to contribute to it too. Their mission reports, like any other, speaking about the whole Edgeryder wavefront. And you're also welcome to use it, to comment on it, as you have been doing. Ben and Gaia have contributed to it, and they got quite a lot of comments, etc. So this thing is already there, and it can be twisted in a lot of ways.
Perfect.
No?
I'm actually not really a part of the community, even if I feel very well here. My name is Marta, and I actually work here in this building in the youth department. So first of all, you were asking about what kind of aspects they were not mentioned from my experience. I would add non-formal and informal learning, because it offers many more possibilities, I think, which were flexible and democratic and quite innovative and across Europe there are a lot of debates about things that we are discussing here, and I think that they are more present in those formats of education and learning than in the formal education. And we have more ability to directly influence that. So that's one point. The second point is that the discussion about really big change, whether this is collapsing or creating something new, is another matter. But for instance, in the last Rome report, one of the conclusions was, or thesis maybe put forward, was that around 2020, there will be a kind of revolution similar to that of 1848, happening from the side of the young people about abolishing the consumerist culture. I don't know when it happens, if it happens, but I think that there is something going on and there are more and more people who observe it. So I think that it's, of course, I think that we are in the mainstream of that change, perhaps. And I can tell you that the institutional people don't have, like square heads or, I don't know, one eye in the middle of their forehead. They're also interested in what is happening in the world. They are interested in what you think and what you think would help. Because you take the risks to explore new things. So whichever format you will decide and the research team decides and giving to this manual or whatever you decide to call it, make it real and make it interesting and share what the dynamics of what is happening here and your thoughts. Then maybe presenting a kind of 1 or 2 page summary of conclusions might be useful, because from my experience of dealing with the institutions, it might be helpful. But keep the spirit there, because there will be people who will be interested in it and who will hopefully make good use of it. And good luck with this work.
Hi, everybody. I don't wish to bite the hand that's been feeding us, Alberto, but everything that's been said so far is very much sounded to me like more government, better government, different government. And I'm wondering, is there any receptiveness in the part of the EU, and is there any interest in the people in this room in saying, now that as we are approaching the limits of corporate governance, as we're seeing governance modes come to the point where they're not working anymore and they're not succeeding in their ambitions, I'm not about, we started out talking about needs and people who are not in education, training and employment. And clearly wasted lives are a tragedy. We also know that a lot of the needs are needs by choice, because and a little bit comment about people want to consume less. But one of the things that I want to consume less is governance. Okay? Is the EU open to hearing that a lot of what we want is, would you please get out of the way and stop interfering and stop regulating and stop subsidizing? That, freedom is precious and we want to explore the freedom, and we don't want more governance. I really appreciate that the EU has made the facility for us to come and talk, but I don't want the talk just to be about more governance and more subsidies. I'm hoping that there'll be room for that to be expressed in the report as well.
But
Thank
who's
you.
we? I mean, honestly, who's we? So you talk about we, and I don't feel that you.
Talking about me.
Yeah, I can speak about me, and this experience, and I can relate to some of. Actually, a lot of what Rebecca was saying, the content, but I don't feel I can speak for a we or for anyone else. So,
Yeah, I agree.
Hello, I want to react to what Mr. just said in the back. He says he wants less governance, but I believe we need better governance in the case of, for example, environmental issues. Because from what I can see, there's many issues that are not being tackled at an international level or at European level, and many things that need to be done. So you might want your freedom, but so far we're destroying the planet. So more freedom won't help us with that, I'm sorry. I don't see how being more free from government will help us go to the 22nd century. I'm very sorry. I think we need some other way to govern ourselves. Thank you.
If anybody knew what to do, we'd have new political parties, right? The absence of innovation in governance and in politics is because we just don't have clear ideas about how to move forward. So we're taking conservative steps for the moment. The thing is that Edgeryders is not the last project of its kind, and it's not going to fix all of our problems in one pass, right? It's a prototype, it's a first step, it's a first experiment. A lot of this stuff needs not to be targeted at the Edgeryders final report, it needs to be targeted at the creation of Edgeryders 2 and Edgeryders 3. So I think if we try and reframe this discussion as, okay, right now we're going to talk about the reporting issues for this one, but in terms of the new terrain and the high ground and better inclusion and more systemic discussion and this kind of stuff, let's think about that in terms of number 2, number 3, number 4, because that's a more realistic timescale, right? At the end of the day, we've got a vast amount of text that we have to process some conclusions from into a document that fits in the spec of the funding organisation. Now let's build on top of that success and go off and figure out, okay, if we had to do this through all over again, maybe we'd do 6 mini reports and there'd be a feedback section, or whatever the changes happen to be. But we can't be ambitious as editors, we have to be ambitious as definers of the next step. You know, editorial ambition just never works.
I'm sorry to jump. I think it's never too late to think about the future on our society.
Further back from the microphone and louder.
To think about our government, our kind of government, because actually you were talking about freedom. How can someone being more free, and how can society work this way? Just by being more autonomous, more responsible, and you can have this only by changing the kind of government. And I think we can get rid of any kind of government. That's it.
I'm Barbara, and I belong to the research team, and I have a question picking up what Nadia was saying about the... Sorry. Is it okay, so? Okay, thank you. Sorry. Speaking about the individual level and the collective voice. Unfortunately, I think that the risk in analyzing data and in drafting a report or in writing something, there is an overlapping of individual level and collective voice. So my question is, it's true, here or everywhere in the world, we have a value as an individual person, and I strongly believe on that. But we are also in a common place, sharing some values, sharing also very different ideas and experiences. How do you expect, and if you have ideas, not necessarily here, please come back to me for the chapter I have to draft. How do you expect that this diversity will be valued? Because we take the responsibility for what we are saying, and I don't think we can speak for ourselves, but our ideas have a multiplying effect on the community, on the society. So how do you expect that to be reflected in the handbook?
I expect us to have an online vote for the community members, to have them like a poll to say how much they agree with the report, and also to have a section for comments. But voting would be the most democratic proposal for now.
Aspetta un attimo, Pietro, Hélène, did you want to say something?
No, this is a no.
Pietro?
Change subject.
One thing that if I were to actually write one thing in the report, and only one, it would be message to the policymakers: growth is not coming back, so we want the government to help in resilience.
Just following on from that, is it possible, I say this as a researcher I suppose, but is it possible to use this time when we've got a a lot of talent in the room to add value to what's already been said in terms of what the report will look like. And then the votes or not votes about the actual structure of the report can come later, just because I feel that we've got a bit lost and we have so much to say in here, and it can be so useful to Rebecca's work. I know Rachel Collins, sorry. It's so useful to Rebecca's work. It'd be so useful for the work Ben and I've done, so useful for the work other researchers have done. We're all here. The best use of our collective experience is to share it. So if people, maybe go back to the questions we had before and just collect responses on it, because we're not going to make a decision about whether consensus voting or direct voting is better or not right now, but we can add content, and that'd be great if we could. Thank you.
Maybe the first question is a reasonable place to start, given that there's a lot of concern around Edgeryder institutional relationships. What do you think about how institutions can specifically be better allies, scale and process?
Yeah, well, that was the question that I was going to ask initially, is that we were talking about more government, less government, and someone said better government. So maybe this handbook could try and draft what type of context institutions and governments could create to enable resilience, to enable better living, to enable all the subjects and themes that we worked on today, and how can policies be made to help people self-realize, help people make the best of the resources that they have, occupy anything that can be occupied, etc. I mean, we've been talking about all these subjects that many of us have related to the commons, which could be a good overarching theme and build a narrative to collect all these streams. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Hello, my name is Nicholas. I'd like to give an answer to the first question. It's in the context of what was said by the two policymakers we had yesterday here. There is the mayor, Vice Mayor Thessaloniki, and the Vice President of the European Parliament. Vice President